Hey guys, so it's been a week. I'm gonna check on this coffee that I put in the freezer. Let's take a look. Hey Blanche. I set a thermometer up on the outside. Whoo! Alright. Let's look inside. Okay, so I have all the coffees out of the freezer. I'm gonna grind them all the same. I'm gonna brew them all the exact same, and we'll talk all about it later. I have to brew them while they're still really cold, and we saw that they're at -9 degrees, so I wanna capture them in that state. So I'm gonna jump right into this, but just to review, we have frozen coffee that had no air protection, the frozen coffee that had oxygen freezing in there with it in a Ziploc bag. We had frozen coffee in a one-way sealed bag, and you can feel some degassing happened, but when I put it in there it was pinched shut. And then we have a vac sealed bag that I vacuum sealed all of the coffee inside. I also have one bag that I just kept out of the freezer, sealed in a normal bag, so we'll compare that to all of the freezer types. Cool? Sweet. I'm gonna get brewing. Hey guys, so I have all of the coffees brewed and sitting right here. They're ready to drink. Before I jump in and taste them and kind of give some feedback on the experiment, I wanted to share some reasons for why I wanted to do this and kind of a hypothesis I have before I taste. So there were two things. One is I've always heard the age-old conversation of you should freeze your coffee to make it last longer, and I've always disregarded that idea, but I've never actually tried it. So I wanted to try, and I figured I'll try it in 4 different ways that I know could or could not potentially make the coffee better or worse. And the other idea was there's a lot of research in freezing coffee very, very cold and grinding and brewing it very, very, very cold to grind the coffee more evenly, and thus giving yourself a higher potential for more flavor or more clarity or more sweetness in the coffee. I know that paper is about very, very cold coffee, and we only had our coffee at -9 degrees. But I figured it'd be fun just to kind of throw both ideas together and make an experiment and see what happens. My hypothesis is the differences are going to be slight, and I can go into that later, but I think we're going to prefer one or the other randomly, so I'm not going to say right away which one I like more, but I'm going to try to talk about how they're different. Cool? Okay, so I'm going to taste. So decant some of these. So in the order that I have closest to the camera, to farthest from the camera, is our coffee that was stored in room temperature in a sealed espy bag. Next to it, I have our vac sealed food saver bag that was put in the freezer for a week. And then next to that, in the middle here, I have an espy bag that was sealed and all the air was pushed out of it. And it was frozen in the freezer for a week. And then here I have the Ziploc bag that had some oxygen trapped inside it, and it was frozen for a week. And then on the very end over here, I have the open jar that was stuck into the freezer all week. So I'm just going to give all these a pass and just kind of explore the differences. By the way, this is La Claudina. I figured this coffee has the most versatility in terms of what can happen when you brew it, so I thought it'd be a fun coffee to use to find out how different it can get. Okay, so right away, I'm getting incredible consistency in the mouthfeel. When I say that, I mean like the weight of the coffee, how the coffee feels when it passes over your tongue, like the texture and how it kind of transforms as you swallow the coffee and what the finish feels and tastes like. That is surprisingly similar within all the cups. Like what the coffee itself that I know this coffee to be like, it's there in all of them. So that's pretty consistent. If anything, I think the non-frozen coffee is less dense. The rest are more compact in a way that this one isn't. I don't know if it's better or worse. I'm just noticing that compared to all the frozen samples to the non-frozen samples, the one thing that is different is the way I'm experiencing the weight and the texture and sort of just like the feeling of the coffee. It is a little bit more open, or it has more like air or space in it. So interesting. So from like complexity or flavor or sort of like an aroma standpoint of like what I can perceive from the coffee or what is just kind of gone. The non-frozen, the vac sealed, and the frozen espy bag definitely have the most like aroma or most like complex amount of flavor going on. There's just more to experience in these cups of coffee. It's not that the Ziploc bag or the open jar necessarily like taste bad, but it's just sort of like they're missing some of those upper layers of flavor, and I'm getting sort of like the core flavor out of these coffees, but I'm not getting some of the more delicate stuff. It's just a little bit more of a one-dimensional or simple cup of coffee over here. Interestingly enough, my favorite aroma is the vac sealed one. I guess that would have to do with how it was stored. I roasted this coffee, I put it in the bag, and I sucked literally all of the air out of it, and then what wanted to degas out actually couldn't because it was stuck in the bag. But this one has like the most potent aroma, which is really interesting. Just a little bit sweeter and a little bit more obvious to describe. It's like a little cleaner of an aroma than these two. These two like have characteristics I'm enjoying when I smell them, but it's just not as distinct. Okay. Now that they're getting really cold, because I've let these sit for a long time, the open jar coffee, it is starting to sort of like fall apart. When I sip it, I can feel like the coffee particles separating from like the water in the cup. When I drink this coffee, let me just try it one more time. It gives this weird sensation. Yeah, it's like you get like sour water, like without really a lot of flavor in the beginning, and then the coffee just kind of like falls on you in sort of like a bitter way. I've actually never noticed something like that before. So I think that definitely has to do with sticking this in my freezer open. I've heard that if you do this, you're going to taste the things in your freezer. I can't quite taste literally what's in my freezer. I have like chicken fingers, salmon, ice cream in there, and it's not like, oh, hey, there's my chicken fingers, but I think being in that open environment has definitely degraded it in some way. It's interesting. The Ziploc bag, though not as interesting as the other three that were more protected from oxygen, it's still great. It's actually, it kind of shaves off some of the complexity that takes it into a more fruity or floral way, and it just leaves me with like a really nice caramel tasting cup of coffee. It's very sweet. It's kind of got that like burnt caramelized sugar quality to it, and it's really round and rich. It's not what I think of when I think of this coffee in comparison to like all coffee, but it's good. Yeah, it definitely has like shaved off like what makes it different from everything else, but it definitely still tastes really great. Yeah, it's interesting. It's cool. I think I'm gonna try these kinds of experiments a lot more before I have like a big conclusion. But based on this experiment and my like immediate impressions right away, I would say I am. Oh, and this is only 2-week-old coffee that was aged in the roasting space for 1 week and then in a freezer for 1 more week. So it's really really fresh coffee. I would say like the effects of this experiment might be more obvious if I waited a month or 2 months with like a bag out of the freezer and a bag in the freezer. But that being said, I really like the coffees that were in the one-way valved bag or the vacuum sealed bag, and I don't really care if it was frozen or not. Again, I think if we waited much longer, I would. But at this stage in the experiment, I think it's just the coffee hasn't had an opportunity in any environment to really dull enough for me to have a preference. I will say this is reinforcing my kind of theory or hypothesis about vac sealing all coffee in general. So yeah, if you have a food saver or any sort of like food vacuum seal unit in your kitchen, I recommend, put a sample of your coffee in it, seal it up, throw it in your freezer, and try it in 2 weeks, or try it in a month, try it in 6 months. Yeah, that one is definitely, it had captured most of the delicate qualities of the coffee for sure, but so did the frozen one-way valve bag at this point. So yeah, I would say, honestly, if you had a SB bag or you didn't have an SB bag, like, you're fine. I don't think I would recommend putting your coffee in the freezer in an open jar. This one definitely like fell off in the worst way, definitely. But you can't get our coffee without getting a bag, so I don't know why you would take it out of the bag and put it in this jar. So I wouldn't recommend that. But if you're someone who has had a habit of freezing your coffee or is curious of trying, I can't tell you not to, because I literally just tried it and I don't think it made the coffee any worse. So give it a shot. Let me know what you guys think. Try it out. Comment on this today. Comment on it in 2 weeks, whenever you do the experiment, or if you have any further questions about it. Yeah, and thanks for playing. I'm going to keep trying stuff like this, and we'll just keep doing more experiments like this, because I think this is cool stuff. So yeah. Anyways, enjoy your coffee today. Peace.